Hi guys! So I feel like it's been such a long time since I last made a video, but basically we're here with another InuYasha video, and as we near the coming of the sequel YashaHime, I thought it would be a really fun idea to put out videos summarizing the whole InuYasha series. So I asked you guys on the YouTube community tab what you guys would prefer, if I should do one whole big video or if I should do it by season, and you guys said by season. So have your post notifications on for the future videos because I do not have a upload schedule. But yeah, hopefully I can get up all the videos out before YashaHime comes out, and I'm very confident I can do it. But basically I just finished watching season 1 and I'm like almost halfway through season 2, and I just took notes and stuff like that. It's just gonna be like a Spark Notes type summary of the show. The last time I rewatched the whole show of InuYasha was back when I was in grade 11. So we shall start with very episode 1 all the way to episode 27. I want to change the world. 風を駆け抜けて何も恐れずに今勇気と笑顔のかけら抱いて Dun dun! The girl who overcame time and the boy who was just overcome. Right in the beginning, we are briefly introduced to InuYasha and Kikyo's conflict. It is located in the feudal era, and we see InuYasha stealing the jewel, stating that he will use the jewel to become a full demon. And then we see Kikyo shooting InuYasha in the chest, sealing him to a tree. And then Kikyo later dying from a deep wound on her shoulder. Right before she dies, she tells Kaede, her little sister, to burn the jewel along with her body. She doesn't want it to fall in the wrong hands of the people who will abuse it, and she says that she will take it with her to the other world. And then we cut to the modern era of Japan in Tokyo, and we see a family, and we meet Kagome, her mom, grandpa, her brother, and her cat Buyo. Later, Kagome and Sota head to the Bone Eater's well while looking for Buyo. Then all of a sudden, Kagome gets dragged into the well by Mistress Centipede. Ew. Miko! Let go of her! She somehow has power and attacks Mr. Centipede off of her, and she awakens at the bottom of the well. She climbs out of the well and she sees that she's not at her shrine exactly. Toto, looks like we're not in Tokyo anymore. She recognizes the sacred tree and she heads towards it, but when she approaches it, she sees a boy with dog ears covered in roots and is pinned to the tree with an arrow. He seems to be peacefully asleep. Kagome randomly touches his ears and it seems to calm her down a bit. I think I wanna touch him. She's spotted by villagers and she gets captured. Top knot, where are we? The medieval times of Japan? She meets Kaede, an old priestess, and she gets interrogated. Kagome gets treated like a potential demon or a threat. But after Kaede takes a good look at her, she sees Kagome's resemblance to her late sister Kikyo. Kaede takes her in. Mr. Centipede all of a sudden appears and attacks the village, demanding the sacred jewel. Kagome notices that the centipede is following her, so Kagome lures it away from the village and towards the well, towards the forest of InuYasha. Due to Kagome's desperation to be saved and I think to smell her blood, right? It awakens InuYasha. InuYasha awakes and mistakes Kagome for Kikyo. You look kinda dumb there, Kikyo. Mr. Centipede attacks and slashes Kagome and the jewel flies out of her body. Mr. Centipede eats the jewel and shows her true form. InuYasha tells Kagome if she removes the arrow from his chest, she will survive. Because Kagome chooses life over death, she pulls the arrow out of InuYasha and InuYasha is released from the seal, I guess you could say. And then he does some acrobatic stuff, and then he kills Mr. Centipede, saving everyone. Iron Reaver Soul Stealer! But then InuYasha pulls a 180 and attacks Kagome for the jewel. He's not the hero, honey. He's not the hero. Ending song. Dun, 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 dun. InuYasha attacks Kagome for the jewel, and Kaede uses the beads of subjugation. And I always thought this, but like, Kaede, why the heck do you carry that in your shirt like at all time? Kaede tells Kagome to choose a word to hold his spirit, and she uses sit. Sit, boy! Having tamed InuYasha, they chill at Kaede's hut, and Kaede treats Kagome's wounds. So we learn a little bit more about the jewel and how it attracts people and demons who want it for selfish reasons. Kaede confirms Kikyo's death 50 years ago after stealing InuYasha to the tree. And Kaede confirms that Kagome is Kikyo's reincarnation due to her resemblance and the fact that the Shikun jewel came out of Kagome's body. Kagome tries to find her way back home on her own, but she gets kidnapped by bandits. And the bandit boss accidentally kills one of his men, and they all realize that something is off. All of a sudden, Kagome thinks it's a good idea to throw the sacred jewel outside of the window. Just because it is something that the bandit boss is like after, I guess. I don't freaking know, man. Bandit boss almost kills Kagome, but InuYasha saves her. InuYasha attacks the boss, and it is revealed that it was possessed by a crow demon. The crow demon escapes, takes the jewel from outside of the window, and flies away and eats it. Kagome and InuYasha go after it, and Kagome attempts to shoot the crow with her arrow, thinking somehow she would be able to do it because Kikyo was a master archer. But Kagome herself can't do archery for her life.
Kikyo, give me your strength.
Give me your strength. It's you! That's the klutz. InuYasha just abandoned Kagome in the forest, and he goes on to get the jewel on his own. Crow captures a kid, and InuYasha attacks the crow, and the kid falls into the water. Kagome, the water imp, saves the kid. What a day! What a girl! What an imp! The crow gets away with the jewel, and the crow's foot is still attached to the kid's back and is drawn to the rest of its body. So Kagome comes up with the plan to tie the crow's foot to an arrow to get a confirmed hit. So when she shoots the arrow, it is attracted to the crow, and then she gets like a confirmed hit. But then she kills the crow. It also shatters the jewel into 100 billion pieces, and it is scattered all over Japan. Peeping Tom and InuYasha, I guess. Ha 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 ha. Kaede insists that Kagome and InuYasha should work together to restore the jewel because of InuYasha's strength and Kagome's ability to see the shards. Yura the hair appears. She is a demon that uses string or hair or whatever, and she uses people as puppets for attacks and stuff. You know, the girl that goes, oh me, oh my. Kaede gets attacked and injured by a villager puppet. It feels like
save yourself.
Kaede could have died here, but she feels so wrong. Kagome tells InuYasha that she's going to go home, and she heads towards the well, and she sees Yura there, Yura of the hair. And Yura attacks Kagome. She steals her shard and pushes her into the well. But then Kagome disappears and returns to the modern era. And then InuYasha buries half-dead Kaede in a hole, and like, yeah, that scene was kind of iconic.
It's the least I can do for you. I'm resting, not dead. Then think of it as a hiding place. Do you promise you won't forget where you left me?
Oh my god. And then we cut to the modern era with Kagome, and her grandpa seals the well, so the stuff from the other side won't pass through. But InuYasha tracks down Kagome and goes through the well anyways, breaks the seals, and he finds her at the house. InuYasha accidentally brings a strand of Yura's hair through the well. When they go to the well, a horde of hair tries to pass through. But InuYasha and Kagome destroy it, and they decide to go back to the field era to finish the job. So they find Yura, and Kagome almost dies again. But she was saved by InuYasha's kimono. InuYasha uses blades of blood. And then the man pulls a whole Kakashi on Yura. Kagome finds out that Yura's weakness is the red skull, and they destroy the skull and they kill Yura. Then InuYasha says Kagome's name for the very first time.
Kagome, let's go.
You never said my name before.
Kagome's all surprised, but man says it 100 billion times every single episode after this, so get used to it. Get used to it. Enter Sesshomaru and Jokin. Sesshomaru is InuYasha's half-brother on his father's side. Jokin is Sesshomaru's henchman. Sesshomaru and Jokin look for his father's grave, using the staff of two heads as a guide. Jokin mentions InuYasha and gives the possibility that he might know where the tomb is, but Sesshomaru gets annoyed and tries to drown Jokin. And then we also meet Miyoga. Miyoga is a old flea, a companion of InuYasha and Sesshomaru's late father. He is the protector of InuYasha's father's resting place. Miyoga doesn't even know where the heck it is, I guess. InuYasha's wounds from Yura's fights are healed.
Yasha and young Kagome.
They do like each other. Then take it off.
What if I don't feel like it?
Undress.
Murky eyes.
Miyoga reveals that InuYasha's father is a great dog demon and that InuYasha's mother was a beautiful human, confirming that InuYasha is a half-demon. Kagome suspects that InuYasha hates his mother because she is human, but we later realize that is not the case. He loves her very much. InuYasha's mother appears back from the dead in a floating carriage in the sky, led by Sesshomaru. InuYasha is really hesitant on believing if that is actually his mother, but Sesshomaru and Jokin convince him that it really is his mother. So then InuYasha kind of tries to fight Sesshomaru to let go his mother, but then his mother goes down and then teleports InuYasha herself and Kagome to a place called the border of the spirit world, which actually is an illusion. It's not a real place. InuYasha reveals that his mother died back when he was really young due to violent days. Kagome realizes that it's an illusion and that is not InuYasha's real mother, but Kagome is paralyzed and she cannot inform InuYasha that. This is really random, but my notes here say Sota still wets his bed. Anyways, the whole time the unmother, which is the fake mother of InuYasha that is present at that time, looks into InuYasha's consciousness to find information on where the tomb is. But at the same time, the unmother tries to devour InuYasha's soul. Then Miyoga wakes Kagome from paralysis by sucking her blood, and Kagome saves InuYasha from being devoured. But Sesshomaru, smart ass, understood InuYasha's random words when he was unconscious. He said, "Black pearl on the right." Sesshomaru removes the black pearl from InuYasha's right eye and opens the portal to their father's tomb. And InuYasha and Kagome follow him. They get to their father's gravesite and we are introduced to the Tetsusaiga, which is the item that Sesshomaru was seeking the whole time. Sesshomaru reveals that it is able to kill 100 demons in one single stroke, and it's made from their father's fang. Miyoga reveals that it belongs to their father and it was forged to protect InuYasha's mother. Sesshomaru tries to take hold of the sword, but there seems to be a barrier protecting it. Sesshomaru is not able to touch it. InuYasha tries to touch it, the barrier doesn't affect him, but he was not able to pull out the sword. Later, as InuYasha and Sesshomaru fight, Kagome uses the sword to help her stand up, and she accidentally pulls it out with no effort at all.
InuYasha!
Girl. And then Sesshomaru compares InuYasha's love for humans with their father, but Sesshomaru blames InuYasha's mom for those feelings.
Even seem to love her.
No denying it.
Feelings of mercy of yours are not something I inherited from our great and terrible father.
Yeah, right. Having half-demon children, sir. Sesshomaru attacks Kagome and melts her with poisonous claw slime things, and this girl dies again. InuYasha and Sesshomaru fights. InuYasha gets hella strong because he reflects on his feelings for his human mother, as well as Kagome, who died just now. But then, to our surprise, Kagome pops up out of the slime untouched, and she was protected by the Tetsusaiga. Sesshomaru transforms into his dog demon form. He gets weak. Not really weak, but he seems kind of dumb. I don't know. This fight was way too easy in my opinion. Anyways, InuYasha and Sesshomaru fights. InuYasha's will to protect Kagome transforms the Tetsusaiga to its true form, and InuYasha slices Sesshomaru's left arm easily like butter. How the heck? Sesshomaru, how did you let him do this to you? Sesshomaru is defeated and he flees.
Okay, I admit it. I ran away.
InuYasha and Kagome return to the normal world, and the black pearl returns to InuYasha's right eye. And then we go into a kind of filler episode. It's their first mission, finding a shard. InuYasha and Kagome are out looking for jewel shards, and they meet Amari Nobunaga right after his monkey steals Kagome's clothes.
Nobunaga? The Nobunaga? Let me shake your hand.
Nobunaga? The Nobunaga? Inukag follows Nobunaga and he tries to look for his childhood crush, Princess Tsuyu, who her castle has gone under some trouble. The prince of the castle, Princess Tsuyu's husband, was possessed by a frog demon, and he kidnaps young women from the palace so he can devour their souls for strength. The real prince is still alive, just possessed. The prince insists on getting killed just to stop the frog demon, but Nobunaga and Kagome insist on finding another way. InuYasha sits out because he's just like, if you guys are not gonna let me kill this man, you solve the issue yourself. I'm here to kill. But Kagome drives the frog demon out of the body of the prince using fire and hairspray. And that ultimately saves the prince, and InuYasha retrieves the jewel shard and kills the frog demon. Because the prince is alright, the princess went back to the prince, and Nobunaga is still single. But yeah, he leaves with no Princess Tsuyu, but he has a peace of mind that she is safe. And then enter Shippo, a young fox demon who lost his parents from evil demon warlords. Shippo appears in a pink bubble form and tries to steal InuYasha and Kagome's jewel shards as they eat lunch.
Dark.
I don't know, but something tells me it's trouble.
Lord InuYasha, no littering.
This is no time to talk trash.
But obviously, InuYasha just beats him up. Shippo talks about the Thunder Brothers, Monten and Hiten, the demon warlords who killed his father, and explains that he needs the shards for revenge. Shippo steals Kagome's shards anyways and runs away. Kagome runs after him, leaving InuYasha stuck on this weight thingy because like Shippo like trapped him. But yeah, so Kagome goes after Shippo, and then Monten appears and he kidnaps Kagome and steals the shards. And he's like, yo, Kagome, you can make great hair treatment because I'm bald. Kagome convinces Hiten and Monten to keep her alive because of her lover, InuYasha, has more shards and that he will come save her no matter what. InuYasha and the Thunder Brothers meet up along with Kagome and fight each other after confirming that InuYasha has more shards. And then they realize that the lover thing was a lie.
My lover?
You actually think I'd hand over the jewel shards as a ransom to get you back?
Of course you would, because that's what a lover would do.
But we ain't lovers, and without love, the whole argument kind of falls apart.
In the meantime, you'd better admit to yourself how much you really love me.
I believe I've heard my...
And then we have this whole battle against Hiten and Monten. Monten versus Kagome and Shippo, and Hiten versus InuYasha. Mid-battle, InuYasha threw the Tetsusaiga at Monten, which stabbed and killed him.
Every last strand of my hair has fallen.
What do you mean?
Don't be so foolish, Monten. We can make it grow back.
And then Hiten ate Monten and absorbed Monten's shards and power. InuYasha couldn't retrieve his sword after throwing it at Monten, so he uses the sheath to defend himself during the fight. And the sheath like cracks and stuff. Kagome and Shippo retrieve the Tetsusaiga, and Hiten shoots lightning at them and they like die again. InuYasha goes mad and defeats Hiten with the Tetsusaiga. InuYasha thinks that Kagome and Shippo died. They appear in like this like weird ass form and there's like blue fire around them. And then Miroku's just like, this is an apparition. They are ascending to heaven. They're saying goodbye. And then Kagome is randomly like, you have fought hard and well. And then InuYasha's just like, no, don't leave me.
You fought the battle hard and well. In the end, I was finally...
Witness, the souls have come to bid you a final farewell before they make their departure. Don't leave me!
But then they're still alive, and it was just Shippo's father's foxfire. And yeah, they get to live to see another day. Hopefully all the way up to YashaHime. And then InuYasha and Kagome basically adopt Shippo. Kagome goes back to the modern era because she has a test. And everyone at school knows about Kagome's illnesses, which her grandpa uses as excuses as the reason why she is not at school. Hojo gives Kagome gifts for her illnesses, and her friends tease Kagome about Hojo. And Kagome describes her ideal boyfriend as the total opposite of InuYasha. And then we cut to Grandpa at the shrine. He is in a storehouse and a no mask escapes from its sealed container. It causes a fire and yeah. Okay, I don't know how I'm telling this story. The no mask escapes from its container and it causes a fire at the storehouse. Grandpa, who was present at the storehouse when the no mask escapes, defends himself with sutras and stuff, and he ended up going to the hospital for inhaling smoke and passing out. Beware the flesh-eating no mask. The no mask starts going around town eating people so it can create a body. A body. I need a body. Kagome and Sota are home alone and Grandpa and Mom are at the hospital.
Sis, got any room for Buyo and me to sleep here?
No chance. You can stay in your own room.
Kagome realizes that the jewel shards triggered the no mask, and the no mask is seen outside of their house. Kagome distracts the no mask by running freaking miles away. I don't know how far or how fast she ran. While Sota goes to the well to get InuYasha. InuYasha appears at the well, and himself and Sota go after Kagome and the no mask.
It's you. You're InuYasha.
In the flesh, kid. Now what's this problem you need help with?
The no mask reveals that it was carved from a tree that contained a Shikon jewel shard many years ago. Literally, after miles of running, they catch up to Kagome and InuYasha defeats the no mask. As day breaks, Sota reveals that his new hero is InuYasha.
You know what? I've got a new hero. Bet you can't guess who it is.
No, man.
And Kagome runs off because she has to run to school for her test. And the next episode, Hojo visits Kagome's shrine and gives gifts for Kagome's illnesses. Kagome and her friends pass by a park of kids playing with small fireworks. Kagome then spots a girl who plays a dangerous prank on the kids that are at the park. And then she runs after the girl to make sure she apologizes, but something is wrong about the girl. The girl disappears and yeah. In the meantime, InuYasha is in the feudal era repairing his sheath with metal wasp demon thing. And then back at the modern era, Sota's classmate Satoru has been in a coma for 6 months after an apartment fire. So Sota and Kagome go pay him a little visit. Sota reveals that bad things happen whenever people visit Satoru, and his sister Mayu, who is the girl that Kagome saw at the park, died in the fire and she is now a ghost. Mayu wants revenge, and she was always jealous of her brother. She blames her mother for her death, thinking that the mom only saved her brother and left her there to die. Mayu tries to kill her brother and she yeeted him out the window. But InuYasha was luckily there, appeared, and saved Satoru in time. Satoru wakes up from his coma, and the Soul Piper, the ghost demon that lent Mayu the power throughout the whole series, or the whole episode, sorry, drags Mayu to hell. But Kagome saves Mayu by pulling her out of the portal, and Kagome saves her soul by helping Mayu realize that the fire was actually her fault and that her mother actually really loved her. Next episode. Hojo asks Kagome on a date. Kagome happily agrees, but is worried that she won't make it back into the modern era in time.
What exactly was this Saturday of yours again?
Oh my god. So Kagome heads back to the feudal era, and Inukag and Shippo look for shards, and they spot spider webs. Gigantic ass spider webs. They run into a young human girl who is running from demon spider heads. InuYasha seems anxious and he is acting kinda different. They head to the girl's temple to check things out, and the priest invites them to stay for the night. InuYasha grows more and more anxious. Then spider heads attack the temple, and then InuYasha tries to fight them off, and the Tetsusaiga doesn't transform for InuYasha while he tries to fight. Inukag and Shippo escape the temple. InuYasha is seen to turn human. InuYasha explains that half-demons lose their powers on a specific day for a short amount of time. Specifically for InuYasha, it's on the night of the moonless night, or the start of every month. The girl that was with them earlier, I guess, finds them and asks InuYasha and Kagome for help to save the priest. InuYasha refuses to help, but Kagome says that she left her bag at the temple, and her bag had the jewels at the temple. So then InuYasha was kind of like, okay, looks like I gotta go save the bag. InuYasha and Shippo head back to the temple to retrieve the shards. But then the priest reveals himself that he is a spider head. During the battle, InuYasha gets caught up in a web and he gets bit by the priest and poisoned. Kagome arrives and saves InuYasha using the Tetsusaiga. They lock themselves in a room, wedging the Tetsusaiga at the door. And then Miyoga sucks the poison out of InuYasha. And then everyone kind of like rests. And then InuYasha just like chilling. He asks Kagome if he can rest on her lap. And then he's like being really vulnerable and saying, yo, I can't believe you cried for me. Like no one cries for me. What the heck? And he was like, yo, you actually smell hella nice. It's the shampoo, I bet. Okay, I'm terrible at telling stories. Anyways.
Kagome.
What is it?
Tell me something.
Tell me something.
Why were you crying?
I thought I was going to lose you.
Girl, he has main
You
character
shed tears
immunity.
for me. If it's not too much trouble, may I lie on your lap?
Miyoka got thick.
You smell kind of nice.
Then the spider head breaks through the room and InuYasha's demonic power returns and he defeats the spider head. Bad. Oh my god, look at him. He's like stiff as
Don't be so sure about that.
Oh my gosh. The music. Oh, look at him. He's so badass.
If there's one thing fighter that doesn't know when to keep its hands off.
The shards they collected fused in his body and they retrieved the shard. Next episode, Demon Witch Urasue. Why do I say it like that? Invades Kaede's village and steals Kikyo's ashes. And then she injures Kaede during the battle. And Urasue gets away. This episode with this dried up prune. You know, like when I reached this episode, I was like, oh, it's this episode. Meaning Kikyo's coming back. InuYasha has a nightmare about Kikyo pinning him to a tree. And InuYasha wakes up and then he kind of just like stares at Kagome like, InuYasha sees the resemblance of Kikyo and Kagome, but he sees that they're also very different and they're two completely different people. Inukage and Shippo return to the village after spotting a demon passing by, and InuYasha caught the scent of Kaede's blood on the demon. InuYasha was worried for her and they decided to go back to the village. Kaede explains what happened and asks Kagome and InuYasha to retrieve Kikyo's ashes. InuYasha refuses because of the conflict many years ago. And then we get a whole flashback in InuYasha's perspective. We see that InuYasha steals the jewel. Kikyo, the protector of the jewel, deceives him. She dies from a wound to her shoulder after pinning him to a tree. InuYasha stares at Kagome and like almost kisses her.
It's not.
It's not like that. You know, it's just like not like that.
It's not like that.
What's he doing?
It's Kikyo, not Kagome. Kagome just notices that he's acting hella weird. Kaede decides to retrieve Kikyo's remains on her own, but then she is like injured and stuff and InuYasha feels bad. So he was like, okay, fine, I'll help, I guess. And then Kagome and Shippo decide to come along. During the journey there, Kagome realizes that InuYasha actually loved Kikyo and not hate. And this whole time, Kagome thought that InuYasha hated Kikyo, but he actually really loved her. Urasue cooks up Kikyo's body using gravesite soil from her gravesite and her remains. Urasue awakens the new body of Kikyo and tells her to retrieve the jewel shards. But Kikyo's body is limp and there is no soul in it. Urasue realizes that Kikyo's soul must have been reincarnated since it did not return to the makeshift body. Urasue's soldiers attack Inukage, Kaede, and Shippo when they arrive. And then Urasue kidnaps Kagome after realizing that she is the reincarnation of Kikyo. Kaede and InuYasha and Shippo all separate from Kagome because they fell off of a bridge. And Kaede realizes that Urasue's plan is to revive Kikyo. Urasue puts Kagome into some soup thing to give Gome's soul. Kikyo's soul is shown to be angry. InuYasha, Kaede, Shippo arrive to where Urasue and Kagome are located. InuYasha sees Kikyo and calls out her name, and it triggers Kagome's soul to enter Kikyo. Kikyo awakens and she kills Urasue in an instant. This shows that she has her own free will despite being created by someone else. She's here. She's dead. I mean, good job. Look at her dance. Oh, I feel so bad for her.
Why did you betray me, InuYasha?
InuYasha has no knowledge of betraying her, but he only recalls the opposite situation. Kikyo said that InuYasha wanted to become human. She was going to grant his wish with the jewel. But InuYasha ruined Kikyo and stole the jewel from her, and she used the last of her strength to pin InuYasha to the tree. Side note, this whole time, Kaede thought that InuYasha killed her sister, but from the beginning of like the series, I guess you could say, Kaede didn't really have any grudge to hold against InuYasha. She's kind of just like, let it go, man. Like, you murdered my sister, but I guess it's been 50 years, I'm over it. Kikyo attacks InuYasha and is really mean to Kaede. Like, girl, my sympathy for the elderly like shot up at that moment. I was like, girl, why the heck are you pushing your sister around and your sister is old? Okay, I felt bad for Kaede here though, because like, this is crazy for her too.
loyalty to your flesh and blood.
Flesh and
so
blood?
devious
Are you
and
sure?
free.
She's made out of
Now,
freaking
hear the
clay.
demand of your move.
She's so mean. She's
Told me you
injured.
wished.
Kaede tells InuYasha to kill Kikyo because it's not really her. But then Kagome's body calls back her soul, and some of the soul still remains in Kikyo, as well as her hatred for InuYasha is baked into her body. And the body escapes. InuYasha goes after Kikyo, but she falls off of a cliff. It didn't have to end this way. InuYasha has a flashback, and he wanted the jewel to turn full human. InuYasha and Kikyo had no intention of killing each other. Kikyo saw both of them as the same, outsiders. Kikyo told InuYasha that he could turn human, that it would purify the jewel so the jewel would stop existing and Kikyo can become a normal human. InuYasha agreed and they decided to spend the rest of their lives together. And she betrayed him and she shot him with an arrow. This is in InuYasha's perspective, by the way. In my opinion, Kikyo was kind of being selfish because she wanted to use the jewel for her own things. But then again, she helps hollow people, so I mean, do you, girl? Do you? Next episode. InuYasha is seen to be dozing off often, and he questions if being full demon after finding all the shards is the right choice.
Gather up all the shards of the Shikome jewel to become a full-fledged demon, and then what?
And then what? You think Kagome's gonna give it to you? You really do? You really think? I don't think so. And then we meet Miroku! He's kind of a fake monk with spiritual powers. He exercises demons, scams his customers, and a womanizer. He spots InuYasha and Kagome at the hot springs, and he sees her gigantic jewel shard.
How come you and Kagome spend so much time together and yet you never seem to bathe at the same time? Think of all the fun things you can do when there's
kid.
Remind me to explain it to you when you're a bit bigger.
I guess that means you haven't gotten very far with Kagome yet, right?
Miroku commissions Hachi to attack and separate InuYasha and Kagome, and Miroku kidnaps Kagome and he rides the bike like a pro.
Young lady.
My boy, Miroku, knows how to ride a bike. I don't understand. After using the wind tunnel, and Miroku lets Kagome go, and he secretly steals this jewel shard as well as her bike. InuYasha snips out Miroku and finds him at a club. It's in a club. InuYasha and Miroku fight, and Miroku suddenly warns the villagers to evacuate as he runs a short distance away from the village. He uses his wind tunnel against InuYasha, and Kagome realizes that Miroku doesn't actually want to hurt humans, and she sacrifices herself and flies towards him. But before she gets sucked into the tunnel, Miroku stops the wind tunnel by covering the hole with his prayer beads, and InuYasha and Miroku stop fighting as they talk things out, having a civil conversation. Miroku explains that he's in search of the jewel shards because he is also in search of the demon named Naraku. He figures that Naraku is looking for the jewel shards as well and that they will cross paths. Naraku is a shapeshifter demon who pierced Miroku's grandfather's right hand over 50 years ago, and he cursed his entire family. Every firstborn male in the family will have the same fate with the wind tunnel in the right hand. Over time, the hole will get bigger and bigger, and ultimately they will get sucked into their own wind tunnel to their death. Until Naraku dies, that is their fate. Naraku is said to also have killed the priestess protecting the jewel, which is Kikyo. And InuYasha realizes that Naraku is a demon that pretended to be Kikyo and himself, to put them against each other. Kagome asks Miroku to join their gang, and he kind of agrees. Miroku asks Kagome to bear him a son. And InuYasha defends Kagome and is like, boy, dear toucher. InuYasha and Miroku decide to go separate ways, and they decide that every man for himself. Human artist that possesses the demon ink. The artist tries to find work at a palace. The artist claims that his power is that he draws with demon ink and it summons demons that he can command. He gets kicked out for lying about his power. That night, the artist summons demons in his sleep and attacks a palace. Miroku happens to be at the palace at this time, and he saves the princess during the conflict. The gang reunites at the palace, and the gang give each other information about the artist and the demon ink and how it possesses a jewel shard. They find the artist, and the artist attacks with hella ink demons. Miroku sucks them into his wind tunnel. Later, InuYasha slices the ink container, sparing the artist's life. Wow! Character development.
Maybe one day I'll die in the hands of someone stronger than me, but they won't be human.
Nope, you're gonna live forever. What do you mean? The man let the demon ink devour his blood, which eventually led to his death. But without an artist, the ink is basically dysfunctional. Kagome picks up the tainted jewel shard from the puddle of ink and purifies it instantly. And Miroku is like, wow. Well, I can't even do that. Miroku decides to join the group for sure and admits that he has warmed up to InuYasha after fighting together. Next episode, Sesshomaru tries to find a new arm. He tells Jokin to find a strong demon arm. Then a Naraku in a baboon costume randomly appears and identifies Sesshomaru as InuYasha's brother. Naraku offers an arm with a jewel shard in it, but he admits that it is a human arm, just so Sesshomaru can wield the Tetsusaiga. Naraku admits to using Sesshomaru to get revenge against InuYasha, but Sesshomaru accepts the deal anyway. Miroku, the con artist, performs fake exorcisms due to an ominous black cloud hovering near castle, just so they can get free food and housing for the night. Sesshomaru and his big-ass demon arrives. They found InuYasha just to take his Tetsuga. Tetsuga. I don't know how to say it, apparently. Sesshomaru and InuYasha fight, and Sesshomaru says that InuYasha has yet to learn how to wield the sword properly. Sesshomaru took hold of the sword with his new arm and kills 100 demons with a single stroke. He kind of just like shows off. He's just like, Jokin, demons right now. Washa. Look, I killed it. Can you do that? No. That's literally what he did, okay? Miroku uses his wind tunnel against the big boy demon, but then Naraku warned Sesshomaru to be aware of a monk and to use a saimosho, aka the poisonous insects, against him. Miroku gets poisoned from the insects. Sesshomaru kills the remaining parts of the big boy demon using one swing of the Tetsusaiga, and then they're all just like, whoa. InuYasha and Sesshomaru fight using the sword versus the sheath. Kagome uses her sacred arrow to cancel Tetsusaiga's. Kagome sees Sesshomaru's jewel shard in his arm and exposes him that human arm. Using this the power of the jewel, you actually weak. InuYasha thanks Kagome for her arrow, making the Tetsusaiga at half its power. Jokin confesses that the baboon-masked demon named Naraku gave Sesshomaru the arm and the poisonous insects. Miroku is in pain because of the poison, and Kagome gives him Tylenol. Oh, yeah, Tylenol. I said medicine here, but I said Tylenol.
InuYasha, make her stop. Half demon though you are, the blood of a demon runs in you. Be proud of that.
I feel like kind of
cute.
He's giving him like advice,
Don't try anything,
life
Kagome.
advice, like
Sesshomaru
a
is
older
totally
brother,
ruthless.
you know? I feel like he low-key always cared for InuYasha in a way. And then InuYasha saves Kagome again. Miroku and Shippo take Kagome away and they run. InuYasha stops Sesshomaru and Sesshomaru stabs InuYasha. InuYasha takes back the sword but loses consciousness. Sesshomaru decides to leave because the sword is out of his reach. AKA Sesshomaru got defeated. Man's never like finishes the job, you know? Which is like really questionable because it's like, maybe you really do care about your brother. InuYasha talks to Kagome in private. InuYasha acknowledges that Kagome learned a lot about the feudal arrow. InuYasha suddenly hugs Kagome and steals her shard. InuYasha pushes her into the well and back to her era. Kagome tries to go back to the feudal era, but she can't pass through because she doesn't have the jewel shards. He said, "A yeet." That's so rude. And of course, he learned this trick from Miroku. Look at that duel. The series is almost over. Dun dun! InuYasha blocks the well with a tree. InuYasha and Miroku decide that they have to find Naraku, but they don't have any leads, and their jewel detector is gone. Miroku learns about InuYasha's past and his connection to Naraku, and they realize that Naraku's enemy isn't actually InuYasha, but it's Kikyo. Kaede treats InuYasha's wounds, and they realize that Naraku could have stole the jewel easily, but he wanted the jewel to become tainted because Kikyo kept it pure. Naraku put InuYasha and Kikyo against each other, so Kikyo's hatred for InuYasha would taint the jewel. And then Kaede mentions Onigumo. He's the only person who she could think of who would want to anger Kikyo. He was basically a thief and he suffered from severe burns all over his body, and he had his legs broken, and he was only able to talk. Kikyo took care of him because she pitied him. Onigumo heard of the jewel and he wanted the jewel all for himself, and he wanted to taint it with evil because he was a sick man. He had some weird obsession with wanting to see Kikyo afraid and angry, and after Kikyo died, his cave went up into flames. There was nothing but an evil spirit left where he laid, and he possessed a spirit of a demon. Suddenly, Ryokan appears, and he is known to be a gentle creature that guards the forest. He comes after InuYasha, and Naraku embedded a tainted sacred jewel shard in his back. Or in his face, I think, right? Miroku tried to suck Ryokan into his wind tunnel, but Ryokan flees in fear. And they suspect that it's Naraku's doing because it is Naraku's doing. Skip to modern era. Hojo asks Kagome on another date. Jump, Hojo. Keep it going, keep it going. Because she bailed last time, basically. Kagome's reaction is different this time because she wasn't like really flustered, but she was more like thinking about InuYasha and if he'll come get her. Miroku and Kaede hide InuYasha in a hut, and they use a barrier to conceal the presence. Basically just to keep him safe because he's injured and he can't fight. And then we get evolved Ryokan with another tainted shard in his back. Or face, right? The barrier breaks around the hut and InuYasha gets out and he's just like, thank you, I did not want to be in there. A battle against Ryokan begins. Shippo escapes with the jewel and Miroku can't use his wind tunnel because of the Saimyosho. InuYasha is still not recovered and Shippo hid in the well. Kagome heads towards her date but she senses the secret jewel shard. She checks the well but she sees nothing and she leaves. Kaede realizes that InuYasha doesn't fight well when Kagome is not around and that they also need Kagome to spot where the shards are on Ryokan. InuYasha doesn't want Kagome to come back because it is too dangerous and he doesn't want her to face such danger again. Hojo and Kagome are on their date at McDonald's. What other place to go in Japan but McDonald's? So they're on their date, but Kagome can't stop thinking about InuYasha and his safety. She ditches Hojo. She ditches Hojo and she goes back to the well and she tries everything to pass through. For some reason, she ended up being able to pass through, probably due to her will and her perseverance to go through. InuYasha smells Kagome's scent and he starts to fight harder, beats Ryokan with only a few hits to the head, and he heads towards the well. Kagome says that she thought he died from his wounds because he didn't come get her, and she felt like she needed to see InuYasha because my girl fell in love with the man at this point, I believe. Naraku, hiding in the forest, spots Kagome and she thinks she is Kikyo. Kagome senses Naraku and InuYasha, Miroku, and Kaede meet Naraku face to face. Kaede brings up Onigumo to Naraku and he admits that he was born from Onigumo. Onigumo had feelings for Kikyo, but Naraku called it a weakness. Onigumo called for demons to feast on his flesh and to give him their strength and power, which led to hundreds of demons merging to ultimately become Naraku. Dun dun dun. Naraku says that Kikyo's power weakened because she fell in love with InuYasha. Kikyo planned on using the jewel for selfish reasons, so she and InuYasha were punished for doing so. Naraku put them up against each other, and Naraku questions why the trust between InuYasha and Kikyo was so easily destroyed. He says it was because of anger. Naraku wanted Kikyo to save herself so he can obtain a tainted jewel full of hatred, but she chose not to. But she decided to burn the jewel along with her body, taking it with her to the other world. And then InuYasha and Naraku fight. Naraku gets away, revealing the spider symbol on his back. Next item! Wait, no. Next episode. A palace reports demons stealing souls from dead human girls. Kikyo is shown to be alive, thriving, walking. A monk sees Kikyo and he believes that she's actually a demon. The monk gets Kikyo to touch a sacred sutra that reveals demons' true form. Kikyo touches the sutra and there's no issue at all, and she attacks the monk with a terrifying vision. The monk tells Kikyo to return to the afterlife and to leave Earth, and points out that she is too dangerous, but Kikyo just leaves the conversation. Kikyo makes close connections to a village and its people, and she wishes to stay and live with them as an ordinary woman. InuYasha and Kagome were guarding a body at a palace of a dead princess, and a soul collector appears and tries to steal the soul of the dead girl, and they kill the demon easily. They spot many souls flying through the sky and they go after them. Kikyo is spotted walking late at night by a village girl and is seen gathering souls of the dead maidens. Dun, dun, dun. The monk calls her out and tells her to go back to the afterlife. Kikyo wishes to live in peace in the village and she needs the souls to sustain her body. The monk tries to kill her with a demon binding spell. Kikyo fights back and kills the monk. The monk says that time for the dead stands still, but time for the living keeps going on, and the monk pities Kikyo for thinking this fake reality would work for her. The village girl sees Kikyo doing all this stuff and she becomes afraid of her. Kikyo leaves the village and realizes that she can't live normally like a human. They find a monk that was with the other monk that Kikyo killed, and the gang finds out that it was Kikyo who was stealing the souls. InuYasha took off to find Kikyo, and Kagome is kind of jealous over InuYasha chasing after Kikyo. Girl! Kagome, Miroku, and Shippo spot more soul collectors and they chase after them. Kagome passes through the barrier and Miroku and Shippo were not able to pass. Kagome continues on and finds Kikyo in a tree. Kikyo believes that she cannot be saved as long as InuYasha is alive because she died hating him. Kikyo makes Kagome invisible and paralyzed and ties her up into a tree, and Kikyo lets InuYasha through the barrier. InuYasha meets up with Kikyo, but he can't hear or see Kagome, who is like right there next to them. Kikyo's body is fueled by her hatred towards him, and her body is sustained by stolen human souls. InuYasha tells Kikyo that he never stopped loving and thinking about her. Kagome feels jealous and feels like InuYasha was taken away from her. Girl! You have Hojo! InuYasha admits that he only cares for Kikyo's spirit and not her appearance. Kikyo kisses InuYasha.
She's kissing him! After meeting you,
And they hug, and InuYasha admits that he wishes time would stop in that moment forever. InuYasha falls unconscious and Kikyo tries to drag InuYasha to hell. Imagine having an ex like that. Kagome says that it's not fair because InuYasha is unconscious and did not agree to die with her. Kagome tries to take back her spirit from Kikyo, and Kikyo tries harder to drag InuYasha into hell. Kagome keeps freaking yelling, and she wakes InuYasha up, and he hears her voice and he runs towards Kagome and releases her from the tree. Kikyo asks if Kagome means more to him than herself, and she flies away telling him not to forget her kiss. It was kind of crazy how she did that, so yeah. Kagome says that InuYasha should find the jewel shards on his own because she feels like all she's good for is finding jewels, but she instantly takes her words back. And she also admits to InuYasha that she was there throughout that whole meeting, which is really awkward. And we cut to Kikyo visiting Kaede, and she asks Kaede about Naraku. Kaede explains it all to her, and before Kikyo leaves, she says that she noticed that InuYasha changed and has become softer. Kaede says that Kagome changed InuYasha. Kikyo's like, bro, if I lived, it would have been me. Would have been me to change him. Kaede asks Kikyo to move on, but Kikyo refuses because she feels like there is something unfinished business that keeps her binded to earth. Kagome passes through the well, and Miroku and Shippo ask InuYasha if he will make up with Kagome or go after Kikyo. And they ask, who will you choose? The dead girl or the girl from the future?
Exactly what happened between you and Kikyo?
Same thing that goes on when you're with a woman.
You mean you did that right in front of Kagome?
Maybe you should explain what you do with women.
And then InuYasha's like, why can't I have both? Excuse me. Enter Sango, my favorite! The Demon Slayer. Sango did a job slaying a demon and she found a shard of his Shikon jewel. She claims that it originated from her village and she takes the shard as payment instead of money. Miroku asks InuYasha what he wants to do once he has all the shards of the Shikon jewel. InuYasha's like, I'm gonna become full demon. Miroku says that people who obtain the jewel lose their heart in the process, and he doesn't really approve InuYasha of becoming full demon. The gang learns about demon slayers and that they slay demons for a living. Sango gives her shard to her father, and the demon slayers decide that they will collect all the shards of the jewel until they find a priestess that can purify the jewel. Sango is with Kohaku, her brother, and she says that it is the most dangerous if a demon who masquerades as a human possesses the jewel. Naraku. So then, the most skilled demon slayers leave the village and they go on a job to fight a demon spider at a palace. After the slayers defeat who they think is the enemy spider, Kohaku, Sango's brother, gets possessed and unexpectedly starts killing the demon slayers. Sango tries to stop Kohaku, but he stabs Sango in the back, and the king orders the guards to shoot the siblings to death to stop their fighting. Too sad, man. Oh my god. The prince enters the scene and slays his father, who was possessed by a demon spider. The guards bury the demon slayers in the corner of the garden, but Sango was still alive and she crawled out of the ground. This girl is badass. I love Sango. Who the heck gets buried alive and then crawls out? No one. but her. Meanwhile, the Demon Slayer's village gets terrorized by Naraku and he steals the shards. The gang arrives at the Demon Slayer's village and they notice that there is a whole tragedy. They meet Kirara, who is Sango's demon pet, and Miyoga again. They notice that no one is left alive at the village and they bury the bodies. Sango finds out about the attack at the village by overhearing the prince and Naraku's conversation. Naraku blames it on InuYasha and says that he's a vile demon seeking the jewel. Naraku's so annoying. Do your own dirty work, man. Why you gotta blame it on InuYasha and put everyone against each other? They all end up being friends anyway. Next episode. Sango insists on slaying InuYasha to avenge her village. Her and Naraku travel to find InuYasha. Sango is barely alive, dealing with the pain, but Naraku gives her a jewel shard to keep her going. Then we learn more about the Demon Slayers and that the village served as a factory and they used demon remains to make weapons. The gang arrives at the cave where the jewel was originated, and they find that there was a barrier at the cave to prevent trespassers. So then the gang decide to leave the village and to look for the Demon Slayers that were on the job while the village got attacked so they can get more information about the jewel. The gang run into Sango and she attacks them. Miyoga says not to fight Sango, and they realize that Naraku is present because of the poisonous insects. Naraku steals Kagome's shards and flees, and Miroku follows Naraku. Sango questions her trust with Naraku and sends Kirara to follow Naraku. Sango stabs InuYasha and she is dripping in blood, but she feels no pain because of the shard. But then InuYasha says that Naraku was deceiving her and she starts to come to her senses. Miroku and Kirara catch up to Naraku, and later Sango, InuYasha, and Kagome catch up as well. InuYasha is strong.
It's you!
Quiet.
Sango,
It's
Kagome,
okay. Going after
Shippo,
Naraku stole a
and
jewel.
He called you Sango.
Naraku admits that the attack on the village was his doing and that the conflict at the castle was also his doing as well. Sango later realizes that the demon present is actually a puppet controlled by Naraku. So it's not really Naraku present, it's actually a puppet. Cause man's a pussy. And we also find out that Naraku shapeshifted as the prince that helped Sango earlier in the episode, and he is now living in hiding as a prince, as an imposter. Dun, dun, dun. Sango forgot the details about Naraku because there is a spell put on her to forget about his whereabouts and where the castle is located. Kagome asks Sango to join their gang, and Sango decides to join to help find jewel shards because she believes that they will run into Naraku eventually. Sango agrees to tell the gang about the origins of the jewel, and she explains that the cave is actually a graveyard. The dead priestess inside holds the barrier, and because the gang showed sympathy towards the victims of the village, they were able to pass through, except for Miyoga because man didn't do shit because he's a flea. So, the origins of the jewel, we finally get to learn it. Many demons fought against a priestess named Midoriko, and she lived many centuries ago. Her body is preserved in stalagmite, and she is shown to be located in the jaws of many demons. Midoriko was able to purify demon souls and weaken the demons as well. She was said to be the strongest human alive at the time. Shikon means 4 souls. Aramitama, courage. Nigimitama, friendship. Kushimitama, wisdom. Sakimitama is love. And when the 4 souls work together, it's called Niobe. And they all reside in the human heart, and it's filled with this goodness. When someone does a bad deed, the 4 soul energizes energy, and the human loses its way. A soul can turn either good or bad. Midoriko purified demon souls and made them powerless, but InuYasha thinks she's useless because she's dead. Sango says that Midoriko hasn't lost a battle yet. After battling for 7 days and 7 nights straight, a demon got its fangs into her. With the last of her energy, she reached deep into her body for strength and stopped the demon's soul. As she did that, she forced out her own soul, resulting in the creation of the Shikon jewel, which flew out of her chest. She was not able to stop and purify the demon's soul, but she was only able to stop the demon and imprison it along with herself inside the jewel. And inside the jewel, to this day, Midoriko continues to fight against the demons. Sango's village worked as slayers due to Midoriko's influence. The jewel passed through many humans and demons through the centuries, and it returned to their village during Sango's grandfather's time over 50 years ago. The jewel was very tainted and evil, and so they decided to give the jewel to Kikyo so she can protect and purify it. The jewel was always used for bad. There was never an instance where it was used for good. They decide that they must put an end to the jewel's bad karma. As everyone is asleep, curious Miyoga goes through the barrier using Kagome's jewel shard, having Kirara accompany him. Because of the jewel, it triggers the demon spirits that were left in the cave that still had bad energy in them. Kirara and InuYasha fights against the elements in the cave and they save Miyoga. Miroku leaves the cave with the jewel shard and they stop the trigger. Last episode! Bro, I was talking for... my voice is going away! Sango agrees to join the gang and the gang try to find Naraku's castle. They come across a shrine. The villagers at this village have child sacrifices to the water god. A boy, who is the headman's kid, hires the gang to destroy the water god. Good business, kid.
What'd you do that for? InuYasha, stop! He's only a little boy!
He needs to be taught who the boss is around here.
The water god creates heavy rain and flooding, and a child sacrifice is necessary for the village's safety. So basically, when the water god wants a kid sacrificed, shoots an arrow at the house that he wants the kid from. And during this specific time, it was the headman's house. So basically, yeah, the water god asked for the headman's child for the next sacrifice, but the headman got a stand-in despite getting other families to make sacrifices, which is like, that is terrible. Terrible. And the water god notices that the kid is a stand-in. The water god is an imposter, and basically there is a real water goddess sealed away. So Miroku and Sango go and save the real water goddess.
You're so beautiful, but so tiny. It would be a first for me, but I'm certainly willing to give it a try.
Try what?
Once they save her, InuYasha and Sango work together to defeat the fake, and the fight was pretty epic, I guess. They retrieve the trident from the fake water god, and they return it to the water goddess, and she saves the village. And then Miroku blackmails the headman into giving him valuables and money. So that's actually all of season 1, and I feel like 27 episodes, so much stuff has happened. We got to learn a lot about the characters. We already got to see a lot of relationship development with InuYasha and Kagome. InuYasha at first was, you know, like a terrible, mean-ass guy who didn't even want to save Kagome. And then the relationship kind of developed towards, I guess, more, hey, I'm gonna protect you. And then InuYasha's trust as well with other people other than Kagome, like Shippo, Miroku, and Sango. And their gang is basically here. Like, all the characters are here, right? So yeah, that is basically season 1. That was a lot of talking. Oh my gosh, my throat is not okay. I can't believe I was thinking about doing the whole series in one video. Thank you guys for telling me to do it by seasons, because that is crazy. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next season 2 coming soon. Just put your post notifications on. I also will notify you guys on Instagram as well as Twitter, my anime account, where I give more anime recommendations. Subscribe and put the post notifications so you know when I upload the next season video. And I always talk about stuff in the community tab as well, about like YashaHime updates and stuff. But yeah, let's just hope I get all the videos done before YashaHime comes out, because but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Check out my other InuYasha and YashaHime videos because they are fun, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye! Boop.